Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video, I'm going to be discussing how to set up soft limits inside of Pumotix. Now, many of you already realize I've done a video on setting up soft limits in Mach 3. If you want to revert back to that video just to see how complex it is, it took me a little over an hour to do. In this video, I'm trying to make it as short as possible, but I think we'll all agree setting soft limits in Pumotix is much simpler, and again, it really is enabled in a fashion that I feel offers the maximum protection, especially since we can set it up so that your system is protected upon you actually entering the software. What that means to every end user is using limit switches is really then an option only if you choose to. It is absolutely not necessary. And to be quite honest with you, I've never recommended it. I hate switches. I know they all potentially fail. And on top of that, they all can create troubleshooting issues that, again, on top of you actually going through the troubleshooting, you also have to implement spending more money and time actually installing them. So not a big fan of switches. Many of you already know that. But again, if you decide to use them, that's fine. The software supports that as well. What I want to cover briefly real quick is that I do have some custom macros set up for home G54 offset, G55 offset, and G56 offset. I'll cover that at the end of the video of why I did that. It'll come into play. For my guys just tuning in and not used to seeing Pumotix or have seen previous videos of Pumotix where I only have 4-axis enabled, right now I'm in the 9-axis screen set. I have 8-axis on the DRO, and the reason I wanted to do that is give you guys more of an outlook of what you would be looking at in a more advanced system. Now, the software behaves the same. It's still very simple in format as far as understanding everything. So what I want to cover real quick is we're going to come over here to configuration and we'll get the ball rolling. We're going to go to settings. Also want to point out I'm in simulator mode, and that simply means my PLCM controller is not connected. Many of you can practice this way, and I highly recommend it. Even if you do have the PLCM, sometimes starting in simulator mode, you can always walk through the bases, no different than a pilot, and when you're ready, enable it and you're set. So what we're going to do now is come over to the Axis tab. You can see we have Enable Soft Limits, and up here we can select what axis we'd like to start with. Okay, and you can see all the available axes. So we're going to select the X-axis first. We're going to click on Enable Soft Limits, and I'm going to set up an arbitrary table. Okay, we know we're in simulator mode, so on an X-axis, let's say we go with 36. Now, as far as your lower limit would never exceed 0. So very simple. If, however, you decided to try to exceed, for whatever reason, the upper limit, let's say you tried to put in 48, you're going to get an error message. The value of the lower limit cannot be greater than the value of the upper one. And that's just logic, guys. Naturally, you would never exceed the upper limit of what your actual motion would be achieved once you've actually programmed it in. So again, it would never be less than 0 as far as your lower limit. You'll notice that I'm in the inch imperial measuring matrix. If you decide to go with millimeters in the metric measuring matrix, it would actually be arbitrary. You can set them up. The measurement would be reflected in that. So just keep that in mind. Once again, we do have the little messages to give you a breakdown of what you're actually setting. Very, very simple. Okay, this one's set. We'll go right to the next, Y. And now I'm going to enable this. And a Y-axis is always usually the longer axis. I get a lot of questions on that. Your X-axis is always your gantry. Your Y-axis is a long axis. So that being said, let's go 48 inches. Boom, done. Let's go right on to the next axis, which would be Z. We'll arbitrarily enable this. We'll set it at 6 inches for basically a regular Z-axis, nothing fancy. Now everything is set. We're going to go over here to Apply. I'll get this message, and you'll see this message if you're in the simulator mode. And again, it's just letting you know about sim pin 10, 11, and 12. No big deal. Exit out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to Tool. And why I want to come over here to the Tool tab is you'll see additional settings. Do not require homing after turn on. Now, when you do this, you can read this text. I'm going to do it again so you can read it. The option allows to use software limits immediately after turning on the machine without actually starting the homing procedure. What that simply means is your soft limits will be active upon you entering the software. Very, very, very powerful. Something that Mach 3 and other motion control software has not implemented. This is imperative to protect your system, and once again, making switches in the physical sense totally unnecessary. We're now going to click apply. Once again, we get a warning message, and then we're good. We're going to come over here, and we're going to go over here, and we'll just OK it. Now what we're going to do, we get a couple warnings up here. It shows show log window. Again, nothing to worry about here. You can clear it. Those are just a message history, more or less, of what's been populated. Now we're going to come up here to File. We'll go to Open File. This way we can represent the table a little better. And I'm going to just pick, let's pick the Bentley logo. We'll load it and populate the table with our G-code. We've got unknown G-code used, no big deal. And you see our table is not present, and the reason it's not present yet is because we have not activated the module. And now we're going to turn on our soft limits. Now you see our table is represented. But as usual, if we look at this carefully, we can see that the table, I'm just zooming back, is very large. And again, it's large because we have not cycled on start yet. And again, you can see here the height differential between the workpiece and the actual base of the table. Totally normal, nothing to panic. The only thing you really want to pay attention to is that you have all yellow dotted lines. And the main reason we want the yellow dotted lines is it means that you are able to machine without going to penetrate any of your soft limit boundaries. We don't want to do that. Okay, something else that's super cool. I don't have all these other axes enabled. I've only got 3 axes right now, so I'm going to just turn off the soft limits for these axes. Now you can also do this independently on each of the 3 that I have active. So watch what happens. As I do that, you'll see your boxes disappear. And you can see that right there. The A-axis is still present. But either way, you can see what we've got here. This right here represents your spindle, and that's where you look at and you can say, okay, I can come in here at any point in time and just bring them all back in. And that's exactly what we've done. So we've got, I forgot that one. There we go. And we've got our representation now of our soft limits. So as this is all set up, and if I click Start, what you're going to find is the table will correct itself and be zoomed out. So let's do that real quick. I get the simulator is selected as active motion controller warning. Any manipulation in this mode will not affect the machine state. Continue, yes. And now you'll see it's right now going to my safe Z-axis height, and there is the table as it zoomed out. So you can see exactly what we've got here, and we'll just center her. And now we'll zoom out. And you can see where our placement is. Okay, now right now I'm in currently G54 offset. I told you I was going to bring up what the custom macros are. Now believe it or not, the table is already set. As far as your soft limits, everything is done. If I hit stop here, we'll let her come back up. And I just decide to jog over. I'm just going to show you this because I want you guys to see this. Boom. You're not going anywhere. Come back over. Boom. You're not going anywhere. So again, you're at your 0 point. Everything here is preset. Got the feed rate set up a little bit differently for coming home. But you can see everything here. And the software will control the soft zone as far as how fast you can see the spindle is moving. And overall, it's all about the software controlling that speed at which it approaches an endpoint. You will not have to correlate anything else. So right now, your soft limits are enabled. That's it. And you can see, once again, as I'm jogging back and forth, I'm hitting the table limits, and everything is set. Now, I'm going to hit go to 0. And this is how you will jog back to your 0 location. You will not be hitting the go home or homing button. There's no reason to, because again, all we want to do is go back to our 0 spot. Now, I've already programmed in our offsets. And here's why I programmed them, because I wanted to show you guys just how fast, when soft limits are enabled, we can cycle to GPS programmed offsets, which are GPS programmed saved locations on the table to machine from. I'm going to go to G55. Boom. You can see it's just moved over the workpiece automatically populated where I set the G55 offset. Now, once again, you want to make sure you're setting your offset for your workpiece that it's not penetrating in any of the 4 quadrants of your soft limits. Okay, if it is, you can manually turn them off. I don't recommend doing that. Now, you can see here, these coordinate positions are now different. Or they're registering on the DROs for your X and Y. And what they're measuring is the distance from your actual endpoints to here. So if we go to machine coordinates, this is telling you you're at 0 position there, which is correct. And this is measuring to your endpoints here. Now, once I hit go to home, you're going to see this zero out because you're going to see your z-axis come in. And now you'll see it come up, and you see it tracking real nice and slow as she's jogging over. And everything will come right into play. But I want to note the most interesting part is my z-axis did not move. And if we look at the machine coordinate position, I'm at 5 inches, okay? Total height. I'm 2 inches above the workpiece. And it's interesting to say that because now you have full clearance, and that's why we can travel that way, and that's why Safe Z-axis, I did that video yesterday, to cover exactly how to set that up. So it correlates when you're jogging. Now, if I want to go to G56 offset, just click it. You can see where our spindle is back at G55. We just hit go to 0. And you can see just how quick this is to work. You do not need anything to home from. You would naturally do your touch off at whatever location you are in your offset, make a mark on the table where that offset position is. I have guys that take a spoil board and actually engrave the offset position there, and you're ready to go, guys. I mean, this is how fast this is. And best of all, everything is saved. So if we go to home G54, you can see we're at the bottom quadrant of the table again, bottom left side. You can see where our spindle is, which naturally is back at the G56. If I was to click G56, boom, you're right there where the spindle was. If I go back to home G54, you're right there, and you're absolutely right. If you said what you have to do is to go back down to where you'd be in the correct position on G54, just hit go to 0, and she'll jog right back down. So everything here is preset, predetermined. I'm now going to bring our, once this moves, you'll also notice you're not able to manipulate any buttons as you're jogging. Actually, the engineers went through and looked at what made the most sense with that because they did not want to have anything that could potentially throw off any control fashion. And I love that because I know a lot of times in mock there was some issues with you actually trying to manipulate certain settings. It could throw the software off. You can't manipulate certain settings here when you're jogging, which I think is super, super powerful in terms of stability. So what we have here is our G-code. We're back at the front. I double-clicked on what lever line I want to go to. You can see how quick that is. And now I'm back right where I would start from. So again, you saw how quick this was. This was a 12-minute video over an hour video with mock. And again, you can see exactly what you've got here. Something I did not cover. I'll just do this real quick for you. If you double-click, left button, mouse, double-click, you'll go right back in as close to your workpiece as possible. So again, just little shortcuts, little things to save you time, but you can see here just how powerful this is. Now, I told you that this soft limit button would be active upon you leaving and entering the software. Let's test this. So what we're going to do is turn the console off. You can see your soft limit button is still active, yet the console is off. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we'll close out of the software. What do you want to shut down? Both Pumotix and server. Okay. I'm going to come back in now. Then I'll select, because I have the option to, the 9-axis format. You'll see my soft limit button is pre-active. As a matter of fact, save the G-code of what we've got here. So everything here is pre-saved. If I turn it on, there we go, and you're all set. And you can see for yourself that our soft limits are once again active. And of course, as we hit cycle start, we already know our quadrants are all good. As long as you hit cycle start, you get the simulator mode again warning. As I do that, you'll see she'll start and then she'll zoom back out. As soon as the spindle comes back down, you're back out, and you can see your soft limits are set. So again, very, very powerful. No switch implementation actually required. I'll hit go to 0. If I decided to mount this work in the actual G55 offset position, just click it, go to 0, and you're right over to it. So very, very powerful, very powerful. And when I say that, guys that have worked with Mach 3 understand just how powerful this is, especially with the fact that you're not doing any measuring other than just putting in your numbers or your table. And again, guys, I always recommend not going to the complete end stop position. Give yourself a ½ inch if you're using imperial measurement, or, you know, just translate it into metric measurement, at least I would say a 1/4 inch. I would never go past that towards your end stop. Give yourself some positional room. It's always just best practice. Not that the software won't hit it. It certainly will hit the soft limit setup, but it's always best practice to give yourself a little breathing room. Overall, you can see how this is active. One other point I want to point out is that right here is a little icon. I'll move away and you should see it again. Soft limits are on. When soft limits are off, I'm going to turn them off briefly, you'll see it go red. Soft limits on, you know you're golden. On top of that, of course, you've got the grid pattern, and the grid pattern tells you basically everything. So we'll go back to home G54, scroll over here, you can see where our spindle is once again. We'll go to 0, and you guys are set. Again, I hope that this video has been helpful to my guys who right now have purchased Pumotix, and believe me, just so everybody knows, I am currently waiting for another order of more products from PureLogic. I have a lot of new neat things coming out to support this software. But on top of that, the PLCM E1Bs have moved very quickly. And I'm trying to do my best to support everybody. And right now we know holiday season's coming up, so I am taking pre-orders for my next shipment. But again, you can see exactly what we've got here. And again, I just went back to block 1, which is start from. Again, I cannot emphasize, I do have all the modules. So a lot of this screen that you see here, again, is only present because I do have all of the modules active. I hope that this video has been helpful. Now, I will have my contact information in the front of the video as well at the end. If you guys have any questions, require quotes or consultations, please message me direct at storm2313@gmail.com. You can also message me through my eBay store, eDealers Direct. I'll get in touch with you as soon as possible. Right now, things are pretty crazy. To all my subscribers, I love you guys for your support. Thank you so much. I hope this video has helped.